the Workplay Podcast, giving you weekly dose of inspiration, motivation, and actionable ideas that would help you pursue doing the things that you love and get paid for it. Every Wednesday, we'll discuss topics that revolve around passion, purpose, and intentional living. We'll also invite guests and we'll hold space for storytelling to challenge us to give ourselves more grace by pursuing the things that resonate with us. I'll be your host, Aileen Andrada. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Workplay Podcast. This is your host, Aileen Andrada, and for this episode, this is actually the second part of the mini-series about kicking off your freelancing journey as a podcast VA. And so just to have a recap of what I talked about last week or during the first episode, I talked about the basics of freelancing, the difference between a freelancer and an employee, the difference between a podcast VA and a general VA, and why it is better to start off as a podcast VA versus a general VA if you really want to start providing services to podcasters. Also, what else? So I think that's basically it. It's really the basics of freelancing, and also I covered a little about the things that I did when I was still providing general VA services, and then some of the tasks that you need to know if you want to start as a podcast VA. And so now for this episode, for this second episode of this mini series, I'm actually going to talk about ways on how you can get started, on how you can get or land clients, which is called client hunting. So this way is actually one of the ways that did work for me, or this is one of the things that I did when I was starting out. So this is a proven way, okay, to land your client, even if you don't have any experience yet as a podcast VA. Because to be honest, when I started out, I really did not have the experience. And so for today, what I'm going to talk about are things that I've tried myself to be able to land clients as a podcast VA or as a general VA. Since, when I was starting out, I really did not push through with being, just being a podcast VA. I was looking for clients so I could have gain more experiences working with clients. Back then, so that's 2020, I did not have any experience with Upwork, Fiverr. I was not actively looking for clients through those freelancing websites. What I did that really worked for me is I actually drafted an email, which I'll read in a while. I'll read it to you so you have an idea kung ano ba yung email na ginawa ko. And then, I created a list of potential clients, like prospects who might be interested na mag-hire ng VA. And how I was able to get their contact email or their details is through Instagram. Because on Instagram, there's a way for you to know, diba, kung ano yung email address nila. Sometimes it's in their bio. Sometimes once you click that contact option or email mismo doon sa Instagram, you will be able to get their email address. So that's how I was able to get their email addresses. And during that time, I was focusing more on women of color, Black women who are into mental health, into wellness. Parang gusto ko that time yun yung i-focus ko, since yung very first client ko was also into that. So I look for other influencers who are also into that, into wellness, into mental health. And so I created the list, and then I created this email, which by the way is something na hindi ko talaga siya Hindi ako nag-research, hindi ako hindi ko muna pinag-aralan kung ano pa talaga dapat yung ilagay sa email when you do cold emails, when you're pitching to prospects. So, actually, it was not me who started that. It was my late father-in-law, because he was a real estate VA before, when he was still working as a VA, when he was still alive, because it was 2020 when he passed away. But I'm so grateful to him na dahil sa kanya I was able to, to be able to work as a freelancer as well. So I'm really blessed. I'm really thankful that he introduced me into freelancing. So he actually was doing this before. He was sending out emails, and he was using an email marketing platform, which is Mailchimp. So in Mailchimp, you could add email addresses, and then you could create a campaign. A campaign is like, a newsletter, an email, and then you're gonna send that out to that list na you have created. And then, so that's what he did. And then he was able to get a few responses from that campaign that he did. And then, pinasa niya sa akin yung isa doon. And during that time, I was already working full-time at a call center at TaskUs. So, that was January 2020 when I started working, when I went back to work after giving birth in 2019. So, it was 2020 January nung nag-decide ako to go back to work. And then came March of the same year, which is onset of the pandemic. It's very timely to, have a side hustle, because I was just working from home. I can have more time to, do some other work that could give us, additional income. So, I got my very first client because of my father-in-law. And then, so I did not expect na magiging podcast VA agad ako, because his line of work is more on real estate. So I thought na it would also be, in real estate. Because back then, I really did not have any idea kung ano ba yung ginagawa ng isang VA. So I was also, self-studying, YouTube tutorials. So I was already working for this client, very first client, okay? And I was doing not just the podcast. I wasn't merely doing things related to podcast, because I was a general VA then. I was doing a lot of other things aside from helping her with the podcast. And then I decided to also get more clients. So I also, as I've said, I did the same thing that my father-in-law did. I created a list. And then I created my own, I created my own Mailchimp account, and then sent out an email to pitch to these prospects. And I'm gonna read to you that email, that exact, same email that I sent to my very first client. And I also use the same email to send it to the list that I created. Hey there, I hope you are enjoying this episode as much as I did. Don't forget to check out the show notes to access the links and the recommendations mentioned in this episode. If you enjoy listening to the podcast or to any other podcasts, check out my online course, which you may find in the episode description, and learn how you can provide services to podcasters just like what I'm doing. Okay, I don't want to keep this any longer. Now on to the episode. So the subject of that email is virtual assistant surveys. So I'm gonna also post a picture, like a screenshot of it on this video podcast, so you can have a look the actual email that I sent out. So there is like a header that says administrative/marketing virtual assistant. Then I said, today I am Aileen, a virtual assistant based in Manila, Philippines. For a minimal rate of $4 an hour, you'll get full support on the following. Number 1, customer care. From taking customer calls to answering online inquiries, I will make sure your clients get the professional support and attention they deserve. 2 is marketing, content creation and ads posting, market research, social media management, leads research and development. And then in parentheses, foreclosures, absentee owners, vacants, tax delinquents, etc. So this one is more focused on real estate, okay? Number 3, administrative support. I will manage your calendar appointments, email, CRM, and file management, follow up with buyers, prospective property sellers, cash buyers, joint venture partners, title company, and any other that may come up. Thank you and God bless. Aileen. And then, yeah, so yun yung pinaka-email, pinaka-pitch na. So, if I will try to, pitch again this year, 2022, present time, I will no longer use the same template. But during that time, I was able to land clients with this kind of email. What more if, I tweaked it or I added some more value in it so that these prospects can see the value that I can provide or I can help them with. Back then, I was able to land this client, or actually, it was my father-in-law who sent me this particular template. So, so I was able to get clients using this particular template, and then, so not all of those clients, are into podcasts, because what I was marketing or what I was pitching is not really podcast VA, but more on the general VA. So now, if I am going to do a pitch, actually, I'm still pitching. We are still doing that. Just I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, we created a list again, and this time naman mga podcasters na talaga, or podcasters in a certain niche that we want to work with. For example, I am really interested in podcast about money management or financial coaches na may mga podcast. So yun yung isa sa mga pinipitch namin today. But we're no longer using Mailchimp. We're no longer using the email marketing platform na isa-send mo. And then we actually have a G Suite or like personal domain or business domain. We're using right now we have hello@yourpodbud.com as the email address that I'm using to pitch emails. And this way is actually a great way to land direct clients, or to land your dream clients, because you are targeting prospects na you really want to work with. So I suggest this way if you really want to get direct clients instead of going through the freelancing sites, because actually I tried doing that, but the process is really different, because it's still like, it feels like you have to go through interviews, you have to do some like tests before really getting the position, and mas madami yung competition, because hindi lang naman ikaw yung nag-apply sa position na yon. There are a lot of applicants, and even though I've been doing this like more than a year na, I'm still trying, I tried applying for a certain position, not because I really needed another client, but because there are opportunities na I feel like I really like working with this company or with this agency per se, and then that's the only time na I really submit applications. But right now, my route or our route of landing new clients is by cold pitching, as well as like on Instagram, on social media, establishing our presence on social media. So that's another topic for another day. Actually, I'm gonna talk about that, establishing your online presence to attract your ideal clients, on the next episode, on the third part of this mini series. So let me see, what else did I miss for this particular episode. So as I've said, back then, 2020, I wasn't using any freelancing sites. I drafted a letter where I sent it out to a list of prospects, And through that method, I was actually able to get two additional clients in 2020. So I was able to land two more clients aside from the existing client that I have, the podcaster client, wherein I was also doing general VA. And then the two other clients are more on general VA as well and social media, like repurposing their photos to post on Instagram mainly. So, what I want you to take away from this episode is that the first thing is you have to identify first the kind of clients that you want to work with. So we're talking about podcasts. So let's say who are the podcasters that you want to work with. So you begin from there. So you try to create a list on your own if you want to go this route, pitching cold emails. You want to create a list of podcasters. You can create a Google Sheet, an Excel file where you add their name, their email address. As I've said, on Instagram, you could get their email address, or even on their website if they have their website, or on LinkedIn if they are on LinkedIn. And then so you also want to think about the services that you want to offer. So when I read to you that email that I sent out, I also listed the services or the offerings that I have back then. So now you can also do that. So that is one thing that I like with that particular email that I sent out. You can be very detailed when it comes to the types of services that you could offer. And then the second one is to get started on building your online presence. So when I say get started, it's not really like be available on all social media platforms, but be available so that once they try to reach out to you, even though they did not per se responded to your email, but you included your social media accounts on the signature. You included like not really a website with a domain, but like a Canva template website. Then they can be able to see the other things that you did not mention on the email. Like, for example, you added your Instagram account there, that you are also present on these social media platforms, and that you are also providing value through these social media platforms. But we're gonna deep dive into that on part 3 of this mini series, okay? The fourth one is, as you are doing all this, continue learning to hone your skills, okay? As you are trying to get clients, don't stop learning about the skills that you need to learn, like editing, or any way of learning new things, any way of upskilling, whether it be paid or free, like listening to podcasts related to podcast management. I know a few local and international podcasters who also talk about like freelancing, or who also talk about providing podcast management services. So things like that. And then the pro tip is to really invest in knowledge, really learn more about it, because that's when you will also gain more confidence. That's when you will also have the courage to create a list and to send emails to this ideal clients, to these clients that you really want to work with. Because if nag-stop ka lang dun sa knowledge na alam mo, then parang hindi ka magiging confident talaga na kaya mong i-provide yung mga services na yon. For example na lang, sa pag-aaral, 'di ba? Like we go to school, ideally after high school we go to college to learn about a specific field, a specialization or specific course. So that after, like, we're instilled na after that we'll have the knowledge, but it doesn't really end there, diba? We still go to seminars, still go to trainings. Even when you're already employed, there are still a lot of trainings that you go through. So learning doesn't stop after school. Learning doesn't stop after you learn the skill. You continue to learn more about it. So I think that's all about this episode. I hope you learned something from this episode. And if you have any other questions or I missed anything, feel free to reach out to me. You can send me an email at hello@yourpodbud.com or on Instagram. You can follow me or connect with me. It's at yourpodbud.Aileen. See you next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Tell me what you learned from this episode or ask questions or just say hi over on Instagram at Workplay Podcast. If you are on Apple Podcasts, subscribe and rate the show. If you're on Spotify, don't forget to give this podcast a follow if the content of this show is valuable to you. I hope you join me next week for another episode.